Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting advice and guidance in your ear. Zweig Group's team of experts have spent more than 3 decades elevating the industry by helping AEP and environmental consulting firms thrive. And these podcasts deliver invaluable management, industry, client, marketing, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts, elevating the design industry one episode at a time.
Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited to be with you as always. We look forward to doing this. I can't believe I told somebody the other day that we've been doing this podcast for 8 years, and every time I do the podcast, I learn something new. And so I'm very honored to have been the host for this long, and I'm really excited to share that in 2025, I'm going to be training some other folks to join me behind the mic. We're going to get some new hosts that are going to work with me. And as we continue to build the Zweig Group ecosystem of podcasts and of storytelling. And so it's going to be exciting times coming up. Lord knows that I've said a lot in 245 plus episodes, but I definitely want to give some other folks a chance to get behind the mic and share. I think you're going to enjoy hearing from them. And don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to train the next generation of amazing podcast hosts and individuals who have amazing stories in their heart to share those stories with you, the design professionals that we care so deeply about. But that's all I got to say for that right now. I have a great episode for you today. I have Dan Crist, who is the president of AM King, on the podcast with us today. AM King is a design firm, a construction firm. They do facility services and property consulting, and they are doing some amazing work out of the great state of North Carolina. And we're excited to have Dan on the podcast today. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Randy. I'm excited to be here. Fan of the podcast. Good to hear that you're going to be training some young proteges to help you out. Big shoes to fill, but also good to hear that you're not going anywhere. You're going to be around. But yeah, we're big fans of the podcast.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you and Risa Goldberg, who actually brought us together so that we could actually do this episode. So shout out to Risa, who's actually in the green room listening as we are doing this. And so we really appreciate her and all the amazing work she does there at AM King. But yeah, it's funny. I always say this to folks when I do leadership training, is that as a leader, your job is to work yourself out of a job, right? Not that anyone is getting fired, but that you're creating opportunities for the next generation or the next group of folks to come in and do what you're doing so that you can then go on and do some even greater things. And so I think from a leadership perspective, it's definitely, I have to practice what I preach and even eat my own dog food, if you will. So there is that. But no, I'm really excited about that. And we certainly appreciate having you on today to kind of talk about some of the work that you're doing. And as a way of introduction, just tell our audience a little bit about you and your superhero origin story as it relates to AM King.
Well, I don't know if it's superhero, but
we're all, Dan, we're all superheroes. Okay.
We are. You're
yes.
Right. In our own ways. Yes. Well, Randy, I've been with the company pretty much since inception in 2004. Brian King started the company with a couple other partners 20 years ago. So we've been celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year. And I was the first employee beyond those first 3 original partners that started the company. So I've been here. I've seen it all. I've seen it from, us having no projects to us growing to doing over $150 million a year in revenue between our design and construction groups, having 70 plus employees, and really excited, to continue to see the growth of the company. I started as a project manager, ran the first couple projects AM King had on the construction side. And then after about 15 years or so of focusing only on the construction side, I got involved with our design group, which is in-house. And so I've spent approximately the last 5 years working with the design group and the construction group, which has been interesting to say the least, but it's been fantastic. I went to school, graduated from Purdue in 99, with a construction management degree, and I never really gave it any thought that I would somehow be involved with the design industry. But the way that AM King has grown in 20 years, kind of starting first, just doing our own construction projects. But the goal was always to also have in-house design and to grow that as the company grew. And so, within a couple of years after the company starting, we started hiring design personnel. So we didn't have to outsource design. We could go to clients and offer them the full design build option. And we thought that that was a great way to provide value to our clients, was to kind of have that one-stop shop where they don't have to go hire a design firm and then bring in on a contractor later on. So the last 5 years, I would say, being involved with the design group, boy, it has really opened my eyes, really gotten a new appreciation for design. As you know, Randy, the construction personnel and the design personnel think completely different, wired completely different, totally different people. But at the end of the day, here at AM King, it's great to see that we've broken down those silos. Both groups have a vested interest in the success of projects and continuing to get more work from existing and new clients. So it's been a great last 5 years. I've probably learned more in the last 5 years than I did my first 15 just working on the construction side. So I never really thought I'd be in this position, but it's been fantastic. And it's been great to see the two groups come together, common goal, and provide value to our clients.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's, as I was thinking about it, and I know we talked about it, and I was joking at the time when we had our first call. I said, I'm going to call this bridging the gap between construction and design. But there's really a lot of truth to that, right? I mean, I can imagine that when you got into this space, well, first of all, you started on the construction management side. You had probably preconceived notions about what things were like on the design side. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. You're almost trained as a construction professional to not get along with the design groups that you work with. It's just how the industry has always been is, when a client goes out and they hire a design firm and then they bring in the construction firm later on to build it, it's always the finger point. And well, I couldn't have possibly screwed this up. It must be the designer that did it, right? And, it's just, like I said earlier, it's just that appreciation I've gained over the last 5 years of working with our great design professionals in-house. I hate that the industry is still like that it's kind of a us against them mentality on the construction side, because it doesn't need to be that way. And you know what? It doesn't help anything. But what we found out to bring it all in-house is, not every day is a great day. You still have some issues that come up where, the design group looks at the construction group and construction looks at design and says, oh, well, I didn't do this, you did that. But then we sit back and think about and talk it through and realize, hey, at the end of the day, we've got to do what's right for the client and what's right for AM King. So I have that appreciation now. And I look back and I'm kind of embarrassed my years on just the construction side and how I perceive, design professionals.
Well, perception is one thing, but the fact that, at Purdue, I doubt that they trained you or taught you how to interact with design professionals, right? So it really is on the job training when it comes to how you interact. I mean, and of course we think about everybody should be equipped with communication skills, the ability to, actively listen and all that, but there's so much more to it. And I think it certainly is helpful to get your perspective in this, because I'm thinking also, Dan, about younger professionals, like the smaller version of you that's just finishing up at Purdue now. How do we equip them to be thinking about it on both sides, right? Both on the construction management side, but then also on the design side.
Yeah, well, 25 years ago when I graduated, the term design build, it wasn't unheard of, but it certainly wasn't something that we talked about when I got into the industry. I just thought of myself as a contractor. You get your degree in construction management, you go to work for a general contractor, and you don't really think about design much. Now it's good to see a lot of these 4-year programs that universities are offering in construction management. They're starting to work in some design classes, BIM classes, and these students that we interview and hire coming straight out of school, they're much better equipped for dealing with the design side of things than I was, for sure. And as you know, Randy, the design build delivery method has continued to grow and grow and grow in popularity. And a lot of that's just been over the last, 15, 20, 25 years. So, 25 years ago seems like a long time, but it's really not. But I've seen our industry change so much, and now seeing so many clients clients that are seeking out design build firms that when I got out of school, I never even gave it a thought. I mean, the thought of me having a class at Purdue 25 years ago that had anything to do with design, it was unheard of back then. And it was something that I can only imagine it would have been one of those courses or two of those courses that they would have made us take. And none of us on the construction side would have been very excited about it. But now we understand how much more popular the design build delivery method has become. And those young people coming out of school, they have to know what design build is. And they have to understand that they're going into these projects as not just a contractor, but a lot of times they're on the same team as the designer now.
Yeah. And, as I think about that, it's like, how much more well-rounded is this professional in our industry that has the benefit of the construction management side and the design side all intertwined, if you will, right? And it's not that you have to wear, I guess technically you do have to wear one hat certain times and another hat the other time, but you also have to be able to walk in the shoes of each of those areas, right? And understand what's going on. And can you maybe talk about a time where that's where you made that connection and you were able to kind of bridge the divide between your foundation in construction management as you kind of moved over and started working with design professionals? And what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, it was probably roughly 5 years ago when I started working more closely with the design group. Is up to that point, I had a lot of preconceived notions of how design groups worked and thinking, well, they're always missing deadlines and they're going over budget and they're designing things that cannot be constructed in the field and they're designing things that can't be built within the owner's budget. And it didn't take me long once I started dealing with our design group on a daily basis to really have empathy and to understand where they're coming from. And they are true professionals. They have a job to do. They have a passion for what they do. And I realized, my 15 to 20 years of management on the construction side, I thought I could bring a lot of value to our design group in helping them with managing schedule, with managing budget. We started out with the design group and started building it, continued to build it, but we didn't initially look at it as much as a business as just it was an offering we had for our clients. And when I got involved, I realized we had very talented designers in our design group. But when it came to like managing the business, I thought there was a lot that I could bring to the group with my history of managing, projects. And, we have such a great group on the design side in our company that they were so receptive to it. I remember thinking, wow, I'm going to have to, they're not going to like me. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to help our design group kind of run as a business. I'm going to train them and teach them and share my experience on how to manage people, manage projects, more than just design projects. And I was skeptical. I was a little worried that I was not going to be accepted into the group, quite frankly. So I spent a lot of time, I cannot, what I learned real quick, Randy, I cannot manage a construction team like I manage a design team. It just doesn't work, right? And I've seen me, when I got the design team under my wing, I was already the vice president of operations on the construction side. And then I became vice president of the company. So what I found out is what I was seeing on the design side, I could go back to the operations side, the construction side, and explain to them. And they already had that respect for me because all of them had reported to me. So they knew I knew how to run construction projects. I knew how to build. I knew how to manage clients. So I think my voice, they were open. The construction side was open to listening to me and me saying, listen, guys, you can't continue to look at our design group and treat them and manage them like they're a subcontractor on the job site. It just doesn't work. And if you were to speak with people who worked with me when I was just on the construction side, the thought of me managing the design group, people would have been like, oh boy, I don't know how that's going to go. I had my way of doing things, and you have to be tough on the construction side and hold subcontractors accountable. You can't always be nice. And now I'm involved with the design group, and I just had to learn to manage them differently. And quite frankly, Randy, it has changed me as not just a manager, but as a person being involved with our design group. Like the appreciation I have gained in spending the last 5 years with them and really seeing what they do day in, day out and how hard they work. I have such a respect for designers now. And so it was pretty easy for me to come back to the construction side and say, listen, everybody, this is how you're going to work with our design group. They can't be treated like a third-party subcontractor. They are AM King just like we are. They have the same vested interests that we have. They want to take care of the client. They want AM King to be successful, profitable, and grow, just like the construction group does. We all have the same goals at the end of the day. So I think the last 5 years, like I said, it's been rather life-changing for me.
Yeah. I mean, you sound like a unifier though, man. You should be you should be running for office, man, the way that you pull that together. No, it makes perfect sense though. Seriously, I really appreciate you sharing that because, it's so funny that, sometimes we get so specialized in our areas that we forget that there are other aspects and other avenues that people have to go down. And so I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we see in the design industry is just the inability to effectively communicate with those other groups that are part of the larger project, right? When you think of it, because you can't do it just as a construction manager. You need a design professional and everybody has to kind of be able to come together. And then on top of all that, then when you introduce real subs into the mix and everybody else, it's like, wow, how do you manage all of these disparate pieces to make sure that you ultimately deliver to your client what you promised?
I mean, I think the key to everything is one word, it's respect. You've got to have respect for what the other parties are doing. We've got to take our blinders off. We've got to understand that they are professionals just like, you are. And, at the end of the day, we're all in this together. The design group is not going to grow and the construction group's not going to grow without each other. The company's just not going to grow unless you're on the same page. And for me, it's one of my goals was to kind of bring a voice to our design group. Our design group is just in the number of employees. It's a smaller group than our construction group was or is. In the construction group, you're dealing with a lot of alphas, who they are. They are control freaks. And I can say this because it's where I'm from, but we are control freaks. We are alphas. We are my way or the highway. We are, listen, don't screw up my job. This is my project. Well, it's not just your project. It's AM King's project. It's the design group's project. It's all of our project. So you really had to, I really had to check my ego. And I've spent time on the ops side. I think our clients enjoy working with our construction group now than they used to because our construction group has changed. Just the mindset and the team first instead of me, and my team. It's us. It's AM King, whether it's, the design group or the construction group, we're all one. And I think the clients, have noticed that over the years, the change. I think our people they act more professionally than they used to. They've matured. We're still a pretty young company in general. I said we were founded 20 years ago. But the age of our employees, we're pretty young. And so there was some maturing that had to happen there. And I think we're at a point now where I really feel great about both the design group and the construction group as far as the maturity that they're showing and the growth that I've seen over the last several years.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing better than a kinder, gentler construction management professional, right? It's like they get it. It
doesn't
right?
have to be. Yeah. I used to think, kind of fighting every day and battling with subs. That was my job. And quite frankly, I loved it. That's what drew me to construction. I just love that. I love that tension and it doesn't have to be that way. And we've seen over the last 20, 25 years that, your construction superintendent, your construction project managers, they aren't as hardened and as, like they used to be. They've all realized that we live in a different day and age, right? And you got to treat people with respect, no matter what their job is. And it didn't used to be like that. So I feel a lot better about my industry on the construction side than I did when I got into it. And when I got into it, I was like, man, I've got 40, 50 years of stress and battling and fighting and right. And it doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way.
No, it really shouldn't. And so, and you say 40 or 50 years because one of the things that I always like to mention about the design industry as a whole, right? Even on the construction management side, because I'm always meeting people that have been in the CM side that have been doing it for 50 plus years. It's a long time, right? Like literally since they were born, they've been doing construction management. And then I think I mentioned this to you and Risa when we had our conversation. I've met architects and engineers that have been working, they're in their late 70s, still doing business development, still winning new jobs, still marking up drawings and things of that nature. So, one of the things about this industry is that you have to be in the mindset of playing the long game and not, kind of just the short game as far as that's concerned.
Oh, absolutely. You got to be the long game. We you talk about designers and construction personnel that are in their 70s. And not only has my job been to bridge design and construction, but a lot of it is bridging generations right now too. I mean, we're hiring 22, 23-year-olds straight out of school on the design and the construction side. And we've got superintendents in the field that are in their 70s. I mean, that's multiple generation gap there. I get excited when I see some of those people who've been in the industry for 30, 40 years kind of change their ways and their attitudes. I mean, that makes me feel good that they really understand, hey, things aren't like they were when I got into the industry. You know, some of these people have been in the industry since the 60s, the 70s, and construction was so much different back then, and how you treated subcontractors, how you treated designers. And I'm proud of a lot of our veteran people that, number one, have embraced the design build mentality we have, and also have really worked with sharing their knowledge and their expertise with the younger generations. And I see it all the time. You know, we may have a 70-year-old superintendent that spends a lot of time with a 25-year-old designer. I mean, not only generational gap there, but just the difference between the two. But I've seen our people really embrace that. They like to teach. A lot of people who've been doing something for that long, if you give them an opportunity to teach the younger generation or someone who hasn't built or designed what they've been doing their whole life, you give them that platform to teach and share their knowledge, they really embrace it. They do. And you can see that excitement. I love showing up on a job site and seeing a 25-year-old working hand in hand with a 70-year-old. It's fantastic. That means that, you know, our culture, we've got the right culture at AM King, right? And we've kind of knocked down those walls of, you know, these generations butting heads. Because again, going back to when I got in the industry, I mean, I was just a kid and I was looked at like I didn't know anything. And I mean, the word respect didn't, I mean, I didn't worry about respect because I got none of it, right?
Yeah.
But now it's completely different. I'm so proud of our employees because everywhere I go, whether it's a project or whether it's here in the office, watching ops and design collaborate and talk, I see that mutual respect and the understanding and the appreciation they have for each other.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. The illustration that you gave us of that 70-plus-year-old professional along with this young person just out of a few years out of school. And I'm always saying that, you know, especially in this industry, in the design industry, the transfer of knowledge is of utmost importance, right? Just think of all that institutional knowledge that 70-plus-year-old has in whatever space they were in, whether they were purely on the construction side or purely on the design side. They have so much knowledge. And I'm always saying to firm leaders, do whatever you can to make sure that that generation, that older generation that's represented in your ranks is really connecting with and developing and building that younger generation, because that is going to totally ensure success for the design industry for decades to come.
Absolutely. And we challenge the more experienced employees. We tell them, you know, it's your job. The expectation is that you are going to train these people. We know that you've got 20 or 30 years more experience than them, but we need for you to train them. We need for you to share your expertise, your knowledge, your experiences. I mean, here at AM King, so much of the work we do is repeat clients. So if we've been building for the same client, designing and building for the same client for 20 years since we've been in existence, like as people start phasing out or moving into different positions, they've got to share their knowledge from those clients' projects with the next team, because that's the part of the value we bring to the client, right? Is that experience. A client comes to us and says, gosh, you've been doing this for us for 10 or 15 years. I expect you to know how to do it right now and how we want it. Well, that only happens if that knowledge transfer is happening between the more experienced people who've done these projects and the ones coming up that are just starting on their first project with this client.
Yeah. I mean, it works perfectly well when it works. And it sounds like you guys are on to a great recipe for how to have success in the workplace. And I know we talked a little bit about some of the changes that you guys have experienced in the past few years. And one of those is just how becoming an ESOP has impacted AM King, right? And we talked a little bit about that. And I said, you know, I think, and this is just Randy talking, but in my X number of years in this industry, you know, I have noticed that just like you said, where design build became a thing, you know, having an ESOP became a thing. Then we are in this space where private equity is a big deal now, whereas before nobody was talking about private equity in the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, everything changes, but one thing has always remained the same, and that is belonging when it comes to, you know, having a dog in the fight and calling yourself an owner. And I think that, especially as more and more design firms embrace the ESOP model, they are creating opportunities for everybody collectively to say, yep, this is my company. And you guys have experienced that firsthand. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about your experience at AM King with our audience with regard to starting an ESOP and what a difference that has made for your firm, period.
Yeah, certainly. We're just wrapping up year 4 of being an ESOP. So in the ESOP world, that means we're not a really mature ESOP yet, but we've made it through about 4 years. And I mean, I, like most people in our company, when our founder, Brian King, started talking about an ESOP with me, I had to go and do a lot of research. I just wasn't real familiar with how an ESOP operated. I thought I knew the gist of it. So when we became an ESOP 4 years ago, we had to really explain to our employees what that meant. And what I have seen, we were 15, 16 years of being in existence as a company. It felt like it was the right time. I felt like when Brian King made the decision to sell his company to us, it really showed that he trusted us to carry on his legacy. He started this company. He was, one of 3 partners for the first 10 years. And after that, he was 100% owner of the company. And he made the decision, hey, I don't want to sell to private equity. I don't want to sell to a bigger competitor. My people have worked really hard to get this company to where it is. I want to reward them by selling them my company. And so right there, that just tells you, wow, that's a lot of trust and a lot of faith in us that, when he's not here anymore at AM King, that we're going to be able to carry on, the culture and continue to grow the company. I mean, for me personally, it felt like a really big responsibility, quite frankly. Like, wow, what if we can't keep going on this track that Brian kind of set us out on? And, my job the last 4 years is to really get involved with the inner workings of the ESOP and to, train our people and communicate to our people what it really means. And you could see almost instantly, I could see a difference in our senior leadership. Like, you could certainly sense kind of re-energized, refocused. Hey, this, the future of this company, we can't just look at the owner of the company anymore, because we are the owner of the company, which means we got to step up and we got to kind of bring out that entrepreneurial mindset that we have. And we need to be an integral part of continuing to grow this company and make it better, while at the same time maintaining the culture that we've always had that makes us so special. So the senior group, they definitely caught on to it more quickly as to what it meant. The younger people, it's still, for a young person coming out of college or a few years out of college, I sit down with them and explain what it means to be an ESOP and what it means to be an owner and the responsibility that, that they're going to carry with that. And they get excited about it. But at the same time, me in my 20s, I wasn't thinking about 30, 40, 50 years down the road and what it meant to be a part of an ESOP. So I saw change right away. And I've continued to see, as we've matured year after year of being an ESOP, I've seen the whole company embrace it. And what it's really done for us, what I've really noticed is, when we have the wrong people on the bus and we can't figure out what seat to put them in, being an ESOP, you look at that person and you say, is this somebody that should be an owner in our company? Is this a business partner that I want to have? And so we, quite frankly, it's, you have the people who get it and understand it. They're pulling their weight and they're fantastic. But when you have a weakness here or there, like you take care of it, because you're a business owner and you got to ask yourself, do I want this person to be a business owner with me? And so, the people who've really understood the ESOP and have really stepped up, we've had virtually no turnover. The people stay, they get it. And like I said, as we become more and more mature and they understand the benefits of being an ESOP, they say, why would I go anywhere else? Unless I want to go take a big risk and start my own company. Like, this is, I've got ownership in this company. So it goes back to the design and the construction side. It's like, we can't battle, we can't butt heads. Because at the end of the day, we literally have a vested interest in the success of every project we have, right? So it's brought unity to the company, absolutely. It's continued to strengthen our culture, which was already very strong and unique. There hasn't been a day in the last 4 years that I've said, man, I wish we wouldn't become an ESOP. I mean, there's no reason not to want to be an ESOP. It's fantastic, but it really goes back to Brian founding the company and making that decision that, hey, it reaffirmed to me that myself and the leaders in this company had really proven ourselves. And we've stepped up to show Brian, hey, your name is in the title of the company, A.M. King, Brian King, right? It's a lot of responsibility, but he trusts us with that. That's his legacy, right? And like I said, he could have sold to private equity, he could have sold to a competitor, and he decided, no, my people have worked so hard. I want them to take this company. I want them to buy it from me. So like I said, it's re-energized everyone. I see it all over the office when I talk to people. When I talk to them about the ESOP, they all get it more now than they did 4 years ago. And they're excited. They want to know how they can be a bigger part, right? And you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, Randy, working yourself out of a job. And I'm glad you said that, because that's the way we work here. If someone comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to be a bigger part of the company, I'll say, well, have you trained your replacement? Who's your successor? Have you trained them? Are they ready to do your job? And instead of being in a large corporation where you're just kind of happy to, you want to protect your position in your job, you don't want to be worked out of a job. Companies like A.M. King, we want to be worked out of the job. The next generation, I want them pushing our senior leaders up, and so they can take over. But I love where we're at. I think the ESOP really did a lot for the company and the mindset of our people in the future. And you talked about it being a long game. And when you become an ESOP, like you do, you start looking at it. It's got to be a long game for you. You got to start thinking about, where's the company going to be in 5 years, 10 years? You got to think like a business owner, right? And you got to, do what you can to continue to grow your business.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. And I mean, I'm just going to highlight the three things you said. Well, three of several things that you said, just for anyone listening that might have missed it, or for somebody in the back of the room: no turnover, unity, and a strong culture. These are all hallmarks of a good ESOP. And, Dan, I mentioned this, I think I briefly said this to you. I have several really good friends that run very large shops that became ESOPs in the past, I would say, let's say 10 years. Not one of them has a regret about making that step. And it has changed fundamentally. When I interact with a lot of the employees of those firms, it has changed their language. Everything is mine. It's like everybody's an entrepreneur now. Everybody has their own company because they're part of that. And so with that said, I have a question for you. When you, in the way that you describe that if someone were to come to you or say, hey, I want more opportunity, I want more responsibility, or I have an idea, how do you at A.M. King handle those, what we like to call intrapreneurial thinkers? People that are very entrepreneurial at heart, but they want to be able to do it within the confines of your organization. Because one of the things that I say to a lot of design professional leaders is that you've got to really develop the entrepreneurs within your ranks, because those are the folks that are going to really be able to take your organization to another level.
Absolutely. I mean, we have business developers in the company that their job is to go out and look for opportunities and sell work, right? But the reality is, and what we preach here is, we're all in business development. We've all got to sell, right? Especially being an ESOP and being an owner. So those entrepreneurial mindset people, when they come to me with ideas, I mean, my door is always open, where we don't have people who are just stuck in, okay, well, I just do ops, I just do design, I just do marketing. Everybody in the company is a salesperson. You have to be if you want the company to grow. And quite frankly, some of our best salespeople are people that don't spend every day in business development. I mean, when I mentioned earlier that the majority of the work we do is negotiated repeat clients, once we get that first job, it's really up to our lead designers that work with that client and our construction team to make sure we get the next job and the next job. They become salespeople, especially on the design side. That's one of the most interesting things I've seen on our design side is our design leaders. They want to be a part of selling work. They want to be a part of securing work and getting more work from the clients they work with. And we have clients that come to me and say, I've got a project coming up, but I need for this designer to be the lead designer again. And I don't think they thought about that before I got involved with the group and before we became an ESOP, that our design group is as important, if not more important than anybody in this company for getting us and securing us future work. I mean, I absolutely have clients that ask for certain designers. And if for some reason, if we didn't have the if we had more turnover than we did, and I had to constantly tell an existing client that, oh, we're going to have a different designer design this, I think, we'd be in jeopardy of losing some work and clients. So the entrepreneurial mindset, like we encourage that. We want that. I want people, whether they're young right out of school or they're my age, if they have ideas for the company that may be a little outside the box or things that are kind of out of their everyday roles and responsibilities, my door's always open. I want them to come in here. Let's talk about it. We have that open door policy here. We want to hear from everyone. And you're right. The ones that have that mindset, they're the ones who are going to rise to the company, right? They're the ones that help us grow the company. They're the ones who are going to rise, their career path. They're going to elevate quicker than the other ones for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a mindset, and it certainly is a platform that I encourage most design firms to embrace, because when you give space to your future leaders to exercise and try out new ideas, you'd be surprised sometimes some of the things that you come up with. And so I think that's really valuable. Listen, I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to try to land this plane. We've had a great conversation about A.M. King, about just working in the design build space, working on the construction management side, working on the design side, and how the two have come together and melded so perfectly there at A.M. King. I have a question for you, though. What are you thinking about as a leader with all of the changes that are taking place around us? And I'm not talking about political changes. I'm talking about there's just two letters that come to mind, and that's AI, right? Artificial intelligence. Yeah. And it's coming for everyone, whether we like it or not. And I know that some people look at AI with fear and trepidation. Other people look at it as, excuse my Star Trek reference, as the undiscovered country. And so I would be curious to know where Dan Crist falls on that spectrum. As you are looking at artificial intelligence, what have you already embraced, and what are you thinking about moving forward as a leader in this space, in the industry that we're in the design industry?
Yeah, well, I was probably originally a few years ago or longer. I started hearing AI, you think it's like, okay, it's not real. Right? What is? And then you start seeing coming. And like you said, Randy, it's not going anywhere. I mean, it's coming, and you better jump on, or you're going to get passed by. And I really, getting back to just our design group, this is where I leaned very heavily on them. They're very tech savvy. They were ahead of me before I even sat down with them and said, hey, we need to really dig into AI in the design industry. And we actually have an innovation committee. And the committee, their initiatives, we sit down and we do strategic planning every year. And this committee, their main initiative for 2024 was to really get into AI on the design side and research it. What's out there? What software is out there? What plugins are out there? What should we be doing, if anything? What are other design firms doing? What are the larger ones that are really the leaders of this technology? What are they doing? And so our design group has dug into it. And the reality is we're going to start using AI in some form, probably in 2025. We're not really doing anything with it yet, except we're doing our due diligence, because we got to look at it from a lot of different angles. Number one, what type of investment are we talking about? The types of clients we have and the projects we have, what value, at the end of the day, what value are we bringing to our clients? I don't want to go out and start incorporating things if it's bringing no value to the client or to A.M. King. And I'm all about efficiency. Really, for me, it's value and efficiency. I look at our design group and I say, listen, you guys have been designing your whole career. If what's out there, are there options that are going to make your job more efficient and more accurate? If so, let's look at it. I've always been for investing in technology in the company. If you can show me how it's going to make you and your group more efficient and how it's going to bring value to the clients. So our innovation group is actually led by one of our lead designers, and she's done a great job doing the research, doing the due diligence, has a whole list of maybe we do this, maybe we do that, but she's pulling all that information together. And as a group, probably in early 25, we're going to sit down, senior management, and they'll present to us, and we'll decide kind of which route we want to go. We're certainly not sitting on the sidelines, but we're also not resource-wise in the size of our company. We're certainly not out the forefront like some of the larger companies are, but we know it's coming. We know we're going to incorporate some things. One thing for me, the biggest thing for us this year is figuring out and working on a policy, an AI policies. Once we decide how we're going to use AI. We got to have a policy in place. We can't just let our people just go out and do whatever they want with AI. So we're working on that policy. That'll be finalized probably by the end of the year. And then we're going to really focus being at 25 as to, okay, what are we going to incorporate? And like I said, it gets back to what value can we bring? And being in the design build world, Randy, a lot of our projects, we'll be working on the design side with our client for 2 years plus. They'll bring us in, they'll say, we want a design build partner. And they will possibly spend 2-3 years working with our design, getting the building to where they want it to be before we even put a shovel in the ground. And our clients are really big on, well, what if I do this or that? What's that going to look like? What's this going to look like? What's that going to look like? And that stuff takes time, right? When you show them a 3D rendering and they say, okay, well, I want to change this, and this. Can you show me later today what that would look like? With AI, a lot more of that's possible, right? We can do that in real time. We can show you right here, right now. It could certainly make our job on the design side more efficient and be able to provide our clients with information a lot quicker. And quite frankly, a lot of the clients we focus on the food industry and the manufacturing industry. They want to see things in 3D. They want to be able to walk through things. They want to be able to see what's going to look like when it's built. They're not real big on looking at two-dimensional drawings and envisioning what their building's going to look like, what their facility's going to look like. So anything we can do to show them what the end product is going to look like and help them envision that and share that with their people, the better. And the quicker we can do it, the more efficient we can do it, the better. And I know there's certainly opportunity out there with AI. I would say if we have this conversation in a year from now, Randy, I'll have a lot of news to share with you as to what we've done and how it's going, because this AI, it's such a big world. It's so much out there. It's like our first step is, okay, what do we think is going to work for us? What's going to make us more efficient? What are our clients going to value? How can we bring more value? Let's not do it just because everybody else is doing it. We've never been like that in anything we do as a company. Just because some companies are doing something, that doesn't mean it makes sense for us to do it. So it's exciting. I went from, some trepidation and a little bit of, I don't want to say fear, but a little of, I'm not so sure about this AI thing, to now it's like, wow, this is pretty exciting. And when our design group sits me down and starts talking about, well, we can do this, we can do that, and we can do it like real time and things, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. It's a whole new world. It really is. So you got to embrace it. You got to embrace it's not going anywhere, right?
Yes. You got to embrace change because it's coming for you whether you like it or not. So, I don't know that there is one right answer, right, for that. I mean, the fact that, that you are even thinking about it, I think is important, and it speaks volumes to the direction of your leadership and the rest of your team. So I applaud you on that. And I certainly will be sitting by with my popcorn to see what AM King comes up with on the artificial intelligence side. But Dan, thank you so much for opening up the books, if you will, and sharing, giving us a little glimpse into AM King and what you guys are all about, and just some of the experiences that you guys have had on the construction management and design side, as well as just what it has meant for you guys to become an ESOP, and now, how you are viewing the future. And so all of that is really important. And I think there are other firm leaders out there that will find some solace and comfort in your words and in your leadership. So we want to thank you for that. I would like to know if anybody listening to this wants to reach out to Dan, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can email me directly at dcrist, DCRIST, at amkinggroup.com. I would actually really enjoy that. I really would. I'd like to hear from some listeners. As I said, Randy, I've been a fan of the podcast. Risa turned me on to it. She's fantastic. I mean, she knows a good podcast when she listens to it.
Yes.
And I found myself listening to several episodes, and quite frankly, it's been a privilege to be on here with you. I was hoping that we'd get the opportunity, and when you reached out and said, "Hey, yeah, I'd love to have you on," I mean, that was fantastic. Risa and I were ecstatic about it. So, certainly privileged and excited, happy to be here, Randy. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And we'll put links to amkinggroup.com's website. We'll share all of that information, and I'll even put your LinkedIn profile on there for people to have. But we really appreciate you, Dan, coming on and just sharing some really great stories with us today. So we appreciate that. And I know that our audience who's listening is really, this kind of information is really helpful because you're not always getting that, but the information exists. And so we try to use this podcast to share that with as many people that will listen. So thank you again.
All right, Randy. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. To learn more about one of the oldest newsletters in the design industry, please visit zweiggroup.com. You can read articles online, listen to this podcast, and sign up for a free subscription to the newsletter and have it delivered right into your email inbox every Monday morning. Sign up today. For more information about Zweig Group's advisory services or any Zweig Group publications, visit zweiggroup.com. You can subscribe to the Zweig Letter Podcast wherever you listen to it. And please, please, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and we'll see you back here with another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast soon. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to the Zweig Letter Podcast. We hope that you can be part of elevating the industry and that you can apply our advice and information to your daily professional life. For a free digital subscription to the Zweig Letter, please visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe to gain more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about leadership, finance, HR, and marketing your firm. Subscribe today.